All right, live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I believe we're live.
Awesome. Good morning. Welcome to the Apollo Challenge Podcast live. We are going to enjoy this week talking about barbecue season. I've got my cohorts here, Will Coffin, Brett Bates, and I will be distracted this entire podcast because the subject is food. So
this is going to be a fun one.
Everybody
this is going to be a fun one.
Heading out for the weekend. We're going to touch on all factors involving not derailing your Apollo Challenge efforts. So Brett is going to take the reins here with leading the questions. Brett is an exceptional barbecuer, party man, so he's going to present all kinds of problems for everybody listening, and hopefully we'll have some solutions. Amen.
Well, I put together some really outlandish questions for you guys. But hey, we're gonna have some fun with it, right? So, the summer grilling season is here, and obviously with our users taking the Apollo Challenge, we don't want them derailing as we were mentioning earlier on over the summer. And there's a lot of pitfalls that you could fall into in regards to eating non-Apollo approved foods. So. Kyle, I'm gonna go to you on this one. Generally speaking, what are some of the obstacles that someone's gonna face at some type of summer party, whether it be 4th of July, Memorial Day weekend coming up? What are they gonna see? What kind of landscape do they have to navigate?
Yeah, I think the big thing is heading into the next week, how much damage occurred during that day, right? So a cheat day has become a very popular term among the fitness community, and the problem with that is that a cheat day encompasses 24 hours, which can get pretty dangerous when you're actually trying to make progress. And so when we're helping people through it, we're just trying to contain that damage, right? You're going to go enjoy yourself. You're going to be around some spirits. You're going to be around some foods that you're going to partake in. But what that window looks like in regards to time and really limiting that. So instead of it being an all-day bender, it may be condensed down to 2 to 3 hours, and be very specific in what you're going to enjoy too. I think that's from a psychological perspective where people will miss the boat, is that it's just freedom to eat anything. And then the problem with that is that you're putting that in your system, and then your gut's in overdrive to clear it. And so that's going to adversely affect you throughout the week.
So let's be honest, it's really not just a cheat day. I mean, it's probably a cheat weekend for some people, especially going into the holidays.
It can sure end up like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a domino effect, right? You kind of open the floodgates. But I think what Kyle's saying is that, and what we really advocate is kind of limiting yourself to a cheat meal.
Yep.
So choose the limiting your window of exposure to some of this bad stuff. So choose the one meal. If we're talking about grilling, it's Memorial Day coming up. We got 4th of July, around the corner. Gonna have some barbecues. Just choose that as your meal, where you're gonna say, all right, I'm gonna enjoy what's being offered because my friends and family have put together this beautiful, delicious meal, and I'm gonna, I don't want to be disrespectful and all the social stuff that goes along with it, but I'm also gonna limit my exposure so that I can continue to see gains. And, I don't want to be all doom and gloom about this is what you can't eat. You can't eat this, can't eat that.
Right.
It's like there's so many things you can eat.
Right.
There's so many amazing things that you can grill and eat at a barbecue that, you just have to adjust and tweak what you're doing just a little bit to make it pretty darn close to on program. I
on program, and then even switching things up to just change the way you do it, and maybe find a better way in some of the recipes that you're able to create, and some of the some of the side dishes that you're accustomed to, that you're just going to go ahead and switch up.
So let's I don't know if you guys have this set up on your end, but let's start with some of the things we want to avoid. So when you're looking at what's a general 4th of July, I'm just trying to think out loud, but a general 4th of July plate of barbecue. So you're probably going to have your hot dogs or your burgers, and we all know where you stand on hot dogs, but you're going to have your salad of some type, potato salad or like a coleslaw slide or pasta salad.
Mm-hmm.
When we're looking at that plate, I mean, some of it's pretty obvious, but what are some of the things that we may not be thinking about?
Sure. So what's going to happen with a lot of meat is going to be doused in barbecue sauce, right? And so we want to avoid the additional sugar there, and we combat that with really well prepared meat. So feel freedom to take charge there if you're manning up the grill. And then secondly, the potato salad, that's not going to be the worst thing that you're going to consume. Is it the thing that you're going to really enjoy the most? I'd probably argue that's not. We like to substitute with egg salad and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's a nice solution. Some of those mayos that are going to be involved in all these salads are going to be soybean oil based, and so our recommendation is that maybe that's something you bring to the table and prepare. So there's a host of ways we can prepare your coleslaw, your salads with some of those other good fats. And then you're also
avocado mayo, on your salads, and just make sure you're choosing the high quality stuff.
And you're going to have an opportunity to introduce that to others, right? So if you're really enjoying this, right, then you're going to want to share it with others. And so this is a great intro, an avenue to do that. So I think Will and I really promote the value, right? When you're going to go ahead and make a decision that, all right, I'm going to cut loose a little bit, is that you're going to cut loose on foods that you're really going to enjoy, right? And so that's the key, is to determine that beforehand. So we'll touch on some of the other challenges.
So obviously, generally speaking, we're going to avoid bread over the Apollo Challenge anyways, but looking at the, whatever these barbecue, your plate might look like at one of these barbecues, we're going to continue that trend, correct?
I mean, that's number one. That's just straight up not worth it.
Yeah.
I mean, especially if we're talking about a bag of buns, that's, that processed white bread, it's not worth it. I like Kyle's saying, and, enjoy the stuff choose the stuff you're going to enjoy. I would rather say, okay, let's avoid all of the buns and stuff and bread products, and I'm going to do my burger with some big pieces of lettuce, and then I'm going to enjoy something else instead of that bun,
right? Because
I can, and I'm going to feel better because of it. So I think personally, even if this is your cheat meal, if you're doing a cheat meal and you're going to go gung-ho, try and avoid the buns. I mean, it's just not worth it.
Right.
It's not.
Right.
It's sugar and it's highly processed gluten. So two things we're trying to avoid. So just pass on it and go to the next station. And
great substitute there's the lettuce, lettuce wrap burger. And if you get a real hearty end cap on that lettuce, it's going to be actually really delicious. So give that a shot. So bring that, like I said, share it with others, give it a try, introduce it to them.
Yeah. That's a tough one to kind of pass up on.
Well, I mean,
it can be.
Good buns out there.
You and your hot dog fetish, you're going to have a nice wide romaine wrap on that guy. Really, you got to give up the hot dogs, man.
I can't tell you the last time I had a hot dog, but
good.
Yeah, so but I do enjoy a hot dog and a pretzel bun every once in a while. I tell my girlfriend to make sure that she keeps them in the freezer so I can't see them.
Told you we're gonna have fun. We're talking about food. So.
Yeah.
But going back to the sauces, I mean, obviously barbecue sauce and everything is probably going to be your life at one of these parties. But any other sauces that might be kind of lurking in the background there that might be full of sugar and full of the things that we want to avoid?
I mean, the thing with barbecue sauce and most likely the barbecue sauce that's on offer, that's out, is like the mass market stuff. That's
right.
It's not even sweetened with sugar. It's high fructose corn syrup.
Yep.
So you're putting frosting on your meat is really what you're doing when you're putting that barbecue sauce on your meat. So if the chef has any idea what they're doing on the grill, and they're cooking, putting little salt and pepper on the meat, whether it's chicken or beef or whatever, that should taste plenty good.
Sure.
And throw some mustard on there, and maybe to kick it up if maybe they, it's hard to cook for a lot of people, so a lot of times it's going to come out a little dry, overcook, so throw some mustard on there to add some extra moisture and to kind of cover up any issues with the cooking. But
and cue meat thermometer plug.
Hey, man.
Right. Yeah, just bring it and hand it to whoever's grilling at the party. They'll love you.
Yeah.
Here, you might want to use this.
Well, yeah, or take the reins and grill, hang out by the grill too. So
yeah. Just start giving tips left and right.
establish yourself as the grill master.
Yeah.
So
Everyone
Will
likes
and
that.
I both lived in Texas for a long period of time.
I didn't know that. Okay.
So if you went to a really good barbecue establishment, you would offend the preparer if you were requesting sauce with the meat,
Sure.
right? Because there's
Sure.
a lot of time. If you're talking brisket, you're talking upwards of 24 hours, even greater, to prepare it. So they're getting it to a certain temperature, trying to retain the moisture, and then season it appropriately. So it's just a challenge to really prepare the meat. So you're bringing out all those flavors.
Yeah, if you come to my barbecue and you slather your meat with barbecue sauce, I don't know where you got the barbecue sauce to begin with, but if you slather your meat with barbecue sauce at my barbecue, I'll be a little offended because I put a lot of time and effort into seasoning that, marinating or seasoning that meat correctly, and so it should taste great by itself. So you really don't need to lather it up.
I love offending you. So,
well,
side question, Kyle, you first. Where's the best barbecue you ever had?
Texas, just probably honestly in Texas, there's some side shows where you're actually driving down the road where it's a mom and pop and they've got their trailer pulled over. Those are some of the best experiences I've ever had. You're not going to miss going to some of the fine establishments. We enjoy cooking brisket. At my place, I've got a nice smoker that we enjoy.
Sure.
My father-in-law recently has one. My wife's a rep for Charbroil, so they've actually come out with some cool products to make it really easy for people to get into the mix with that low and slow approach.
Yeah.
So
not a paid plug.
Not a paid plug. So,
Well, what about you?
It's tough to pinpoint a specific location. Definitely in general, some of the best barbecue, and honestly, I was exposed to a different type of barbecue in Texas because they do a lot more like the brisket and the long smoked meats, which were delicious. And so going to some of like the big barbecue competitions and getting to sample some of that meat is amazing. And then talking to the guys and realizing that they started and they were up for the last 24 hours tending to this meat to make sure it stayed at the perfect temperature the entire time. And if the heat drops off and they have to, can that batch and start again, and it's just, it's
pretty cool.
It's a labor of love
because they're all working with different tools, and then they're all working with different
Yeah.
timing within those tools, and so like the last couple hours are rather critical for them if they're going to pull it off, if they're going to foil it,
Right.
what other kind of finishing touches that they're going to put on it. But it's a fun way to spend your day because you're actually involved with your hands, which is rather gratifying in and of itself.
Yep.
So
yeah. So that's tasty. It's tasty. It's all good.
Mine would have to
There's
be.
some good barbecue in Chicago too, though.
Oh, absolutely. Mine would have to be in not St. Louis, Kansas City. Oklahoma Joe's is a pretty well-known one. I can't remember the other place that I ate, but Kansas City barbecue, you can't go wrong.
nice.
I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's a fun town too, by the way.
I haven't partaken in the Kansas City barbecue, but it'll now be on my list.
I mean, you can make, we're talking about barbecue, and most people wouldn't think, oh, barbecue is on the Apollo approved list, but you can, as long as you choose your items wisely, you can take a really good barbecued piece of meat and add the right, greens and sides and have a delicious meal.
Yeah, it's not going to be disqualifying.
No,
whatsoever.
one of our favorite spots here does an amazing smoked meats. And then you just get a couple double sides of slaw instead of the other sides, and you've got a awesome Apollo-approved meal. It's great,
Right.
Especially if you've got if they're using a high quality mayo, or even this one here is a vinegar-based slaw, so you're good to go. So a little creativity there, and you can have a delicious meal, and you don't have to limit yourself to some of these food groups, but. I don't know if we want to get back to grilling out in the summer.
Yeah. So, is there anything else that we want to, before we dive into substitutions and things that we should be eating? Is there anything else we want to avoid? Anything else we didn't cover there?
No.
Okay. All right. So let's start with the potential bread substitutions. Obvious one's going to be lettuce. Any other ones out there that might be able to liven up our barbecue?
I don't have too much experience with anything else. My wife seems to like this low carb bread, but it's not gluten free and not really one that I would suggest. So I think going with either solo meat or lettuce wrap forms your best bet.
Okay.
The trick with the lettuce is to get I like the bib lettuce. I think if you get a whole head of that bib lettuce and then you take a couple pieces on either side, it's really tasty. Iceberg can be a little boring. I mean, it's an easy one because you can just slice it and get good chunks to create the bun with, but it can be a little boring because it just doesn't have a lot of flavor.
Sure.
And then the bib lettuce, and you can see them in the grocery store, like you get the whole head. It kind of looks like it was just taken right from the hydroponic area, which it was. And then you just take those leaves off, and you can make a really, really tasty bun. And I last year at a tailgating for a football game, Notre Dame, University of Miami, I did that for everyone, and no one complained. Everyone said this was great. So it was like 15 people.
And they're not tired afterwards.
Yeah,
so
you're not tired.
It's great.
Leaving room for beer.
Yeah.
Because we're on it, and I've been asked about it a couple times, and so have you. And I don't even know if you guys know about it, but Ezekiel bread.
Yeah.
What is the content there?
Yeah, so you're talking about sprouted bread.
Yeah.
That's not going to go well with the meats, so I wouldn't ever recommend it.
All right.
Just because, again, that has a real strong taste in of itself. Okay, not a bad one.
It's like
but paired with the meat, not necessarily, but paired with the meat, I just wouldn't suggest it.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I mean that's still grains. That's still a lot of it's mostly carbohydrates. So you're gonna it's
gonna be lower on the glycemic index, right? Which is why people would lean that direction. But I would certainly avoid it.
Still has it's it's a better, but it's not good by any means.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean stick to the lettuce, or just knife and fork if that's the way you roll.
Sure.
Load it up with good stuff. Sometimes you don't even have enough space for all the, grilled onions and stuff you're gonna throw on top. So just put it all on the plate.
All right. So what are some of your favorite dishes here? What are you proposing, Cal? On some of your
so I handle all the grill stuff, right? So
yeah.
It's going to be anything that you're going to throw on the grill, which could be any form of beef, chicken, sometimes pork. But we'll do a real good coleslaw with the avocado oil and mayo, and we'll do some side salads as well. If I'm gonna, this is not Apollo approved. We will do a smoked mac and cheese occasionally.
Okay.
So if we're gonna decide on something that we're gonna partake in, that would be something that we do. But we're not gonna actually prepare that. So you laughing at me?
Yes, I'm laughing at you.
I'm having.
I was just being honest.
He's
it's all out there.
He's froyo and donuts. You're
it's all out there.
Yeah. So
we all have our weaknesses. That's okay.
So do I. Okay, continue.
That's it. So.
Meats.
Yeah.
All right, then I guess I'll talk about some of the.
I know you have a few.
Some of the meat not alternatives. Additions to the meat. I love throwing all of my vegetables on the grill, whether it be. Sometimes I'll do it in tin foil because it's a great way to kind of just wrap up tin foil, put them on the side of the grill, let them kind of roast while you're doing all the rest of the meat. So you can do pretty much anything you do in the oven, just throw in some tin foil.
Yeah.
So you could cut up some zucchini, some summer squash, and some onions, and put that all on the side in a little thing, and then
that's better than the mac and cheese.
Season it up nice. You can throw. I like to. You can do really thick cuts of zucchini and summer squash and put those straight on the grill. Do them at lower heat because you don't want to really char them because they will burn, and then you don't want to eat that. So, just at lower heat, and you just kind of get those gentle grill marks on there, so it looks really good. You can do onions the same way, right on the grill. So yeah, right on the grill. I really, almost prefer put it in foil, and then they also make some of these veggie baskets that are specific for doing kind of like a stir fry style on the grill. And I like those a lot too. We've got one of those at home, and it's kind of like a mesh, not like a colander mesh, but stamped steel with some holes in it so that the heat can really rise through it.
Okay.
But then you just kind of turn that every once in a while on the side as you're doing your meat, and you don't have the issue of losing bits of smaller veggies through the grates, because that's definitely an issue of trying to manage, losing little pieces over the edge. So that one of those veggie grilling baskets is a good way to avoid that, or going back to throwing it in the tin foil.
Probably helps reduce a lot of the char too.
Yeah, it does. Unless you do it too hot, and then you end up burning the whole bottom of it, which I've done. So make sure you oil it well, and that you do it low and slow, and just kind of keep turning it. Some of the other good items. So I talked about zucchini, summer squash, asparagus is another great one to do on the grill, and you do those across the grill grate, and you can kind of do those right on the grill. Or another one that's really easy to put in some tin foil and put on the side, and you'll kind of like get that baked, steamed, and it's tasty. Butter it up and throw some garlic salt on it, and you're good to go. That's kind of my go-to.
Yeah.
Some of the more interesting or exotic options might be like slicing some bok choy in half and doing that right on the grill. I've probably been to a restaurant where they've given you some, baby bok choy or something. That's a fun one. And when it comes into season, you see it more in the grocery stores. And that just comes down to seasoning. Make sure you want to douse that in oil and butter and salt and pepper that baby.
Bok choy. I don't think I've ever had. What does it look like? I probably have.
It looks. It's like a dense lettuce. So it kind of. It's like. How do I explain this? It's almost similar to celery in the sense that it's kind of a long and it's got a dense bottom, and then it gets kind of more leafy at the top.
Sure.
Kind of like a bib lettuce, kind of leafy at the top. So it's that's a good one.
That'd be different.
Yeah. No, it's like I said,
it's
a
some
nice
texture.
change.
It's good stuff.
Anything in some bell peppers, slice those however you want, throw those on the grill, throw those in the basket, onion, garlic, shallots, anything that's in the produce section. Anything really, like anything that you can do inside the kitchen, anything that's fresh and local. Go to the farmer's market and see what they have out there, pick it up, throw it on the grill, throw it in a tinfoil bag on the grill, and do it next to your meats, and it's probably going to turn out just fine.
Sure. Well, probably, some of the best advice would be to start get a little bit exotic, get creative with what you're going to be putting on the grill too, because you want to spice it up, right? And however, no pun intended, but actually go and try different seasonings. And make it a little bit easier. A couple wild cards I wanted to throw in there: jalapenos. And shrimp. I don't think.
Yep, shrimp. I was going to talk about some. No, it's okay.
Drink your milkshake.
Okay. We got down to it. Like kebabs are awesome. So and shrimp are a great way to do shrimp is kind of on a kebab stick on the grill, and then you can just kind of flip them pretty easily. Trying to do them kebab style or like put some tinfoil down right on the grill and then do them kind of sautéed on the tinfoil. Doing them by themselves on the grill is a lost cause. It's not worth it in my opinion, because they'll either stick and you'll have issues with charring, or they'll cook too fast and you end up drying them out. So kebabs are a great way to do it, and then you can really get creative with kebabs, because you can do shrimp kebabs and then just kind of intersperse shrimp and some veggie pieces and grill those right on there. You can do the same sort of thing with chunks of other meat, chicken or beef, and just, grill those up. Make sure that you properly cook the meat. That's probably the biggest issue, is that you don't overcook or undercook is the bigger concern with kebabs, is because people kind of want them to cook quickly. But that's a great way to kind of do it, because you can prepare that really nice and easy ahead of time, wrap it up, keep it in the fridge, and then when it's time to grill, just walk out with a big plate of kebabs and throw them on there and feed people really quickly.
Yep.
That's one of the challenges of grilling for a big party, is how do you stage cooking for 10, 15 people?
Right.
It's getting everyone happy is part of the challenge.
Yeah. That would be, I think a kebab would almost be like the quintessential Apollo food, just the onions and whatever different types of meats.
Sure. Veggies.
How about the all-powerful ear of corn? That's probably going to be on your plate, smothered in butter and salt and pepper. What do we stand? Where do we stand on that?
Well, I think your good sweet corn is going to be closer to the 4th of July than Memorial Day.
True.
But I think Will and I have discussed this as far as if you're gonna eat sweet corn, it's probably gonna happen a couple times a year, and that's probably gonna be it, right? So I'm gonna let him hammer home on some of the concerns with it.
The challenge with any corn is the source, and most of the corn that we eat has been bred, and modified. It was modified through breeding to be the sweetest version of the corn, so that it's palatable and enjoyable for us to eat. What that means, it's mostly sugar. It's a candy bar, and treated as such. And like Kyle said, we're probably only going to expose to it 2 or 3 times out of the year.
Yeah.
And so it's probably just fine to eat it those 2 or 3 times of the year. We're not by any means advocating it, making it a staple at the dinner table. But if it's the right time of year where it's in season locally, and it's a local farmer who's you've got a good source of it that you trust, and go out and enjoy it. Lather that baby up with butter. The interesting thing about corn is that depending on the way it's used in so many products, and the way it's processed determines the way we digest it. And so corn on the cob is really interesting because we can't digest the actual corn cellulose.
Right.
So depending on how well you chew it depends on how much of nutrients you're actually going to absorb from it. So we can digest the meat of the corn kernel, which is mostly fructose, especially in the sweet stuff. So you're thinking it's just you're just eating a bar of candy. It's sugar.
That's why it tastes good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So some of it's just going to pass through your system unaltered, but
I think everybody's seen and experienced that, right? I mean,
we went there.
So
we were kind of just hovering around it.
It's the reality of it. So like a kernel of corn, you're probably not going to get as much of a you're not going to absorb a ton of those nutrients. So just eat it for what it is, enjoy it for what it is, and have it 2 or 3 times a year at those events. And I wouldn't. It shouldn't be on your buy list at the store when you're shopping on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
But when someone else puts it on the grill and it's part of the deal, and in the summertime, you're not going to be really hurting yourself too much with the corn,
right?
Because there's no gluten in it. It's just a sugar. It's the fructose. And fructose has a heavy load on your liver, and that's going to be combined with the load on your liver from any alcohol you're drinking. And so, like, all of that's going to combine to how you're going to feel the next day.
Right.
And so,
and we'll
just keep that in mind.
And we'll get to the alcohol piece.
Yeah.
As far as cheeses go, it's probably going to be somewhere in or around your food. Anything, obviously we're avoiding dairy on the challenge, but if we're going to have that one corn meal a year or 2-3 times a year, any cheeses that we can kind of put on our plate that maybe won't be that detrimental to us?
This is personal because it depends on if you're lactose intolerant. So most people have an issue with lactose, which is the sugar that's in dairy products, and cheese does have lactose in it.
Mm-hmm.
So, opposed to like a ghee, which is no lactose left in it. So there's dairy products that have different levels of lactose in them. Cheese does have lactose in it. So people will react and respond to that cheese differently. It's a personal thing. If cheese makes you feel like crap, don't do it.
Sure.
It's simple as that. And it should be as simple
Let's move on.
It should be as simple as that, but we know it's not because we know that it's this trained habit and the social, response to this. And so, and that's okay. That's just
I think
the nature of it.
The certainties in that answer would certainly be anything that's overly processed cheese too, right?
Yeah.
And so
don't waste your time with like slices of Kraft American cheese.
Yeah.
Please don't.
Yeah.
Please don't.
No brands.
If you're gonna do it, get some. If you're gonna do it, get some high quality.
Yeah.
Locally produced.
Yep.
Ideally grass fed. If you're gonna go to the grocery store, and there are grass fed options. Kerrygold actually makes some great cheeses.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So then they're
start looking for
grass fed. So if you're gonna do it, get the good stuff.
Yeah.
So if you have any control, obviously.
Brings me back to Germany. Amazing cheese.
Sure.
I just ate on a regular basis. It was at every meal. I swear to God.
Yeah.
That's I love goat cheese. That's kind of my weakness.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's a way to get as organic with that as possible.
Yeah, goat cheese is great because it's the people react to it differently than they do dairy from cows.
Sure.
So goat cheese, this is kind of the N=1 experiment of testing how you do with things. Especially once you've gone through the Apollo Challenge once, and you really have a better understanding of your baseline reaction to certain foods. Once you start adding them back in, you can see if how you do with goat cheese, because most people will do better with goat cheese than they do with
just a milder cheese. Then
it has to do with the makeup of the amount of lactose and the type of lactose and the type of lactose and enzymes that are in goat's milk versus cow's milk.
Sure.
So, and I don't have the specifics in front of me
Sure.
right now. We can talk an entire episode on that later. But no, goat cheese is a good and typically better option.
Okay.
So.
Mm-hmm.
It's perfect on
It's
hot
one
dogs.
of my favorite ones. Yeah, not on hot dogs.
Okay, so alcohol. The other thing that we're going to be consuming during these barbecue parties. Where do we start with that? I mean, if we're going to go with beer, what are some of the beers that we can have, or that we should probably lean towards?
Yeah, I'll start here. The beer is kind of your least desirable option as far as in order of if you're going to get inebriated, what you want to choose and drink socially. Most beers, especially, and there's a huge craft beer movement. I at a time I was a big fan of IPAs, and then I realized craft beers
don't agree with me.
And they don't agree with me either now.
I don't like them either.
Yeah.
But I've got family that really enjoy them. So
no, I used to love them, but now I can't tolerate them at all.
Yeah.
And it's got to be because they're higher gluten, and so any of those craft beers are going to be higher carbohydrate, typically higher gluten. So the beers that if you're going to have a beer that you're better off reaching for, surprisingly, the Mexican beers tend to have the lowest amount of gluten in them. Actually, essentially no trace amounts for some of these beers. Now if you're like celiac, if you're really, really sensitive, I'd still stay away because they're still made with gluten containing grains. But that's your Corona, your Modelo, Pacifico, some of those are good lower gluten options. Now they still have carbs, they still have alcohol.
Sure.
Carbs are going to spike your insulin, and the alcohol is going to get processed and tax your liver. So keep all of that in mind, that it's not just because they are lower in gluten doesn't mean that they're not hurting your
if
body.
we're thinking about mitigating damage, right? that should be it should be more favorable. Have you ever tried Pacifico?
Yes.
Okay.
Kind of put that in the same class as Modelo. I mean, it tastes the same to me as Modelo.
No, it's an outstanding beer.
So good. Those Modelo is delicious. I mean, I can just throw a lime in that.
As far that's one that has probably more flavor than some of the other options, because Coors Light is another one that has basically trace amounts of.
And they're awesome summertime beers too.
Yeah. So some of the Modelo's has got a lot more flavor than a Coors Light or a Corona Light. It's going to have for sure.
Well, let's go harder. Let's. What about Kyle? What are some of your go-to lighter drinks in the summertime?
Yeah, if you're going to go with any kind of liquor, you're going to try to pair it with something that is without sugar. So I like straight alcohol if I'm going to drink alcohol. So whether it's going to be a bourbon or a whiskey, that's my form. That's a little rougher. But I think you've got your gin and you got your vodkas that you can go with, and use some soda to ensure that you're not going to consume it with much sugar, and that you're also getting hydrated as you're
soda
water. Soda water,
right? Yeah, like
soda water. Excuse me,
like
club soda.
Fizzy water.
Yeah.
With a little citrus or something is a great way to
I think that's the kicker when you're trying to flavor something, is to get citrus, lime, lemon, something in there that's gonna change that flavor profile
Right.
for you and make it a little more exciting than just the vodka and soda.
Yeah. Although I can drink vodka on the rocks. Is there any truth, and this might be a little off topic, but any truth to, like, I'm a whiskey drinker. I think you know that. But because I can do old fashions all night or just sit there and have bullet whiskey on the rocks. But any truth to kind of processing vodka a little bit differently than whiskey, and as far as
Well, I think that all falls under the, like what Will was just talking about, is this self-testing. Everyone's gonna have a very unique reaction to whatever's gonna be presented to them, and so it's essentially self-assessing the entire time, and there's many considerations involved in that too. One the next day is, how did it affect, how much sleep did you get? Also, what else did you pair it with? What did you eat? Right. And so all those considerations are going to be unique. So it's just a matter of determining, that this just happened to me, or really reflecting on what you consumed and how did your body respond.
Gotcha.
And the quality matters too on this as well. Like there are great options, high quality, craft distilled liquors made from organic grains that are non-GMO and all, because some people tell, well, once the alcohol is fermented and it's processed, then it's just alcohol, and so it doesn't really matter the quality of the grains. And I would argue that a lot of the other components do still come through. That's why they taste different. That if it didn't matter what it came from, then everything would taste the same at the end, and we know it doesn't.
We've all had Gordon's vodka and Grey Goose, and we know which one feels better in the morning.
I don't know what
or Skull vodka.
If we want to go vodka to vodka, right?
Gordon's. I haven't heard that name in a while.
Yeah.
We've all had Boone's Farm.
So if you're only drinking a couple times a year, or maybe then choose the good stuff, and and mitigate your the downside. That being said, as far as like processing vodka versus like a whiskey or something, it depends on the grain that it came from and how much comes
and how
through
you react to it,
and how it was filtered, and that every alcohol is going to be different, and how you react to it, and so it's going to be how you feel, but at the end of the day, they're all alcohols, they're all taxing your body. There really isn't a on like in grain alcohol and hard alcohols, there's no like positive hormetic effect, which is like a positive stress effect to drinking alcohol. So it's not like you're somehow making yourself stronger by having exposures. Now there have been studies with wine that have shown that occasional exposure, a couple glasses, can have a positive effect. But a lot of that's attributed to the resveratrol and the red wine grapes, some of the tannins and some of the other components that come through from the grape. Now, to kind of keep going with wine is another option. Probably in general, if you're going to choose a glass of dry wine or grain alcohol, you're probably better off going with the wine because it comes from a non-gluten containing source. Grapes are non-gluten.
Sure.
Now it's fermented sugar versus fermented grain. Rum is obviously fermented sugar as well, but fermented sugar from the grapes, the sugar content is what's going to matter as far as how much how kind of detrimental the overall effect and load's going to be from the wine. So a drier red wine is probably your way to the best of the red options. The sweeter white wines have a lot higher sugar content. And this is again, quality matters, and then just listening to your body and seeing how you feel. I know that I sometimes if I drink a sweeter red wine, I feel terrible. Like within the hour, I just get stomach cramps and it doesn't feel good at all. So sometimes it's a pretty quick feedback loop, with all of these things. So just
I have that
limit your exposure.
Feedback loop from time to time with wine.
Yeah,
it just depending on the wine that I drink, or almost like an immediate headache.
It's funny. Everybody has their different mechanisms that set them off.
But just limit, what we were saying before, limit your window of exposure to any of this stuff.
Sure.
Now that's not saying binge drink to get your effect. I just want to make sure that doesn't get interpreted
Just
that
get
way.
it in as quick as possible.
No,
Shotgun and beer bombs.
Moderation, and limiting your
bombs.
window of exposure. Yeah.
Anything you want to add there?
No, I think you got it covered real well. So.
Another thing that I learned when I was in Scotland is there is obviously a wide variety of scotches. Most people know that who drink even on occasion. But there is a type of scotch that I can't even remember the name of it, but it literally tastes like medicine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like peaty, smoky, like peat moss, smoky medicine. And it gave me a terrible headache immediately as I drank it in Scotland. So I won't forget that.
Did you keep drinking it?
I did finish it. But, I had to, when in Scotland. But that was a different. That is an acquired taste on a lot of fronts. Okay, so the only other thing I wanted to touch on was some substitutions for like marinades for your meat, and or saucing them up with something that might be Apollo approved. So anything you guys want to put there? I mean, obviously we can put olive oil on anything, right?
Sure.
Or maybe we can spice it up with some mustard and some salt and pepper and kind of make that into a rub or something like that. But anything you want to throw into that, Kyle?
The various meats, depending on the meats, so it's hard to be general in this one. So I've had real good experiences with brines. Also Bragg's liquid aminos can be interesting. Yep. There's a host of other ones, but again, it all falls back down to the grill quality and the timing that you're. First of all, the meat that you selected and the quality of that, and then the preparation, the time spent in the grill, pulling it off at the right temperature to retain that moisture. So I think when someone has that solved really well, then they're going to have a hard time putting a piece of meat on a plate that doesn't taste fabulous. So
Sure.
Yeah, I think you can have such amazing results with just a dry seasoning.
Yeah.
Whether it be a pre-mixed steak seasoning from Whole Foods. I think they have one that's called organic steak seasoning. That's delicious, and it's just good stuff. I think it's black pepper, garlic, just some really good aromatic stuff. Put that on your meat and put it on the grill. If you want something simple, if you're doing nicer meat, then just keep it really simple with salt and pepper. You really let the meat taste like meat. I would stay away from some of the wet sauces on the grill.
Sure.
It's also like one of the other challenges is that that's going to drip. It's going to cause flame ups. It's going to cause charring. It's going to, like a lot of those, the wet seasonings are going to actually make it harder to get a good end product, because you're going to end up, burning the meat, charring it. We really do want to try and avoid putting an excessive amount of char on the meat, because that, it can be carcinogenic, that extra blackening. So going with just a well-prepared piece of meat with a little bit of seasoning on it's the way to go.
All right.
I don't want to shut you down on the
my tip of the day,
sauces and stuff.
My tip of the day is to pepper after it comes out the grill. So I learned a while back that if you pepper beforehand and then you burn the pepper, it becomes a bit bitter.
Mm-hmm.
And so I only throw that on afterwards. And
what about salt?
Salt is critical to the preparation, right? Extracting the moisture, and so you're getting, instead of more water, you're getting the juices of the meat. So the salt is actually has a great mechanism to aid in the taste, but the pepper is best applied afterwards. So give that a shot, and that again falls under the line of taking your time when you're preparing everything and tasting it, and then really developing and then iterating as you move forward the way you're cooking your meat. But yeah, pepper afterwards.
And if we're going to talk about the whole process, really, like Kyle, you would suggest salting your meat liberally ahead of time.
But yeah, 24 hours.
And then letting it sit.
If you're really gonna make
into
it,
this, yeah.
Oh, of course, yeah. Why wouldn't
yeah.
you? You spend a lot of money on it, so we understand the cost per pound. So if you're really gonna make it taste good, I'll salt it 24 hours beforehand, and that's really gonna pull water out.
Sure.
And then once again, and so the concern there people have is that they're gonna have an over salty piece of meat, and that's just not the case. It actually only will absorb 30% of what you're applying to the meat, and so give that a shot. So we've had really, really good experiences with it.
Yeah, and then pepper at the end once it's done. So those are your pro tips for beef.
Nice.
And then also, as Kyle mentioned at the beginning, we'll come back using a meat thermometer. That way you can get it perfect every time.
Yeah.
Again, you're paying a lot for the meat. You want it to come off exactly when you want it to. So use a meat thermometer. It's a science, specific science. The whole the test of getting the feel of.
This isn't exact.
It's my dad got away with that for his entire grilling career, and with typically good results. Like most of the time it would come off the grill exactly when we wanted it to. He tended to err on the side of rare, so nobody would really complain when it came off extra pink because he was buying the good cuts and taking it off on the rare side. But there's also times when you're not paying attention. You go inside and you come back and it feels more like your knuckle than it does your the inside of your hands. So the meat thermometer, and especially you can do a probe that you leave in there, and it's going to go off when it hits your alarm.
Yeah.
So that's even another hack to make sure you don't screw it up.
And speaking on that, Will brought up, rare, medium, rare. Everybody has a different definition of that, and you'll find at any good steak place, everybody is really concerned from the service standpoint of delivering and well communicating what's going to arrive according to whether they order rare, medium, and so on. And so everybody has a different definition in their mind. So when they tell you that, it's just important to really understand. My father's definition of rare is going to be way different than anyone else's. So, or medium rare. His medium rare is rare. So, as opposed to where, my wife's medium rare should be a little slightly closer to medium. So, it's just what registers in our mind from that first occurrence. So,
where do you take your meat?
I like it closer to rare. So I'd be remiss if I shared what temperatures I like to pull it off of, because they don't necessarily qualify for the FDA approval for servicing cooking the meat. So I think their USDA, if I'm not mistaken, is 140. So I like it 120. So, but that's going in my body.
I mean, I did.
Right.
I would agree with you. I love rare.
Yeah.
Maybe medium rare.
But USDA guidelines. 140, food safety.
There's a restaurant in Texas I really enjoy going to it that had an upcharge for anything above medium rare.
I like that. I like that.
So,
that's hilarious.
They just refuse to serve overcooked meat, so I applauded them for that. I don't think they're still in business, but
probably not.
Looking at our notes here, the one area that we didn't touch on that you're probably going to get exposed to at the family barbecue, and especially this summer in general, is fruits. So fresh fruits. I think the thing with fresh fruits is I like to think of it as what's seasonal. So, if the fruit had to be shipped in from Chile to be in your grocery store, which is like if you're buying strawberries in December, there's a good chance it was from a southern hemisphere location shipped across the ocean, and it's just if you eat seasonally, you're already kind of cutting down to what's going to be good and local and wasn't shipped across country lines. And all of these foods, the longer they're shipped, the longer in storage, they lose a lot of their phytonutrients. So eating them as locally as possible is great. And the summer is the time when fruits are going to come into season wherever you are, especially if you're in a northern climate. And so, have them in moderation, and as you see fit and are drawn to them. Think about like how hunter-gatherers, how we were evolved to find them. We'd come across a bush of blueberries and we'd eat all of them because that was there. But then we wouldn't come across blueberries for another, 12 months. So kind of thinking about your exposure to fruits in that way. You can load up on those nutrients, and then just don't let the convenience of the kind of modern industrial food system of and bringing and shipping and international air freight and stuff. Let's not expose ourselves to that every day, or even every week. Seasonally is probably the best way to do it.
Sure.
One other thing we talked about that is a big challenge, even if you go to a barbecue or an event and you're saying that I'm not going to have any desserts, the big challenge is when grandma or aunt or mom shows up with an incredible dessert, and they give you the trip that I was really excited to make this for you. Right? It's a really hard turn.
I made this for you.
That's really hard to turn down, isn't it? Right? So there's a little bit of guilt involved there on both sides, on the front end and the back end, pre-consumption, post-consumption. So it falls under that umbrella of pick foods that you're really going to enjoy.
Yep.
And so I'm going to guess that's something you're really going to enjoy, and then put it behind you. So.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, food is social. There's no getting around that. So a lot of times we have to eat things that maybe aren't at the top of our list because of that social pressure of, the effort was put into making this for, to share with the group and whatnot. So, don't be rude, but limit your exposure. That's it.
Don't be rude. Eat that cake. Eat that pie. That's all I got, guys.
Cool.
That's all the questions I got for you.
Awesome. I think we're going to have some exciting news next week. So looking forward to next week's podcast. Everyone enjoy their weekend, enjoy their grill season, get after it, start your preparations now. It's Tuesday. Start thinking about what you're going to bring and make it worth your while. And Will?
Yeah. No.
This is your time to tweet and to Facebook and to Instagram.
All right. Highlights, just everything we talked about today is just limiting your exposure. And, if you're going to have a cheat, make it a cheat meal, not a cheat day. Realize what you're doing to yourself and limit your exposure. Realize that you're probably going to feel like crap the next day. So really just truncate that. Take advantage of intermittent fasting the next morning to really kind of cleanse your system and get past that exposure. And you probably will be just fine in a day or two. You know? So, but it's a cheat. It's exposure to something negative. So
make sure
enjoy yourself with some delicious meat, some delicious vegetables on the grill. Have some fun with it. Enjoy the summer. And if you have questions for specifics or ideas or recipes, reach out to us on our Facebook page, on the YouTube comments here, or directly on our website. You can find us on Instagram, Apollo Challenge. You can find us on our website, apollochallenge.com. Lots of really good content there. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. So there's like the deal. There's a red little button around here somewhere, whether you're on your phone or you're on your computer. Click that to subscribe and make sure you turn on notifications so that when we go live, you get the notification, and you can check back with us next week.
Cool.
So
have a safe Memorial Day weekend.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome.